I wish I knew this sooner. Does it sound relatable to you? Or have you ever wished to be born somewhere else or in another time? Well, unfortunately, we have very little control over the starter pack we are born with. And as a musician, I had to realize that I have very little control over the opportunities that came to my way or that didn't come to my way. So I have to learn to utilize the things that I actually can control, which is what I do with the things I have, or more simply, how I react. We can easily forget that behind every masterpiece there are countless of bad paintings being made, or behind every perfect concert we hear there are thousands of mistakes or wrong notes being played in the practice room. So I think that everything I feel like I know today is the result of the countless of mistakes I've made in the past. So I just decided to share them with you. I decided to share 10 things I wish I knew sooner. So hopefully if they are going to be relevant for you, you won't have to go through them all alone. And the thing I want to start with is how your first concert will suck. And this is not the point I'm trying to make, but bear with me. So your first concert will suck, your first composition will suck, the first YouTube video you put out there will suck. But as you continue doing them, as you continue repeat, over time you will feel like you suck, well, less and less. And maybe eventually you're going to get to a point where you are happy about yourself. When you look at your final thing, the final thing you created, and you feel happy about it. How cool that sounds, right? But the good thing about this is that the sooner you start something, the sooner you will get to that point when you're happy with it. So you have to suck first to get good. You have to fail to get good. And there's no better time to start something than today, than now. So just go and just start doing it, whatever it is. Just start doing the thing now. Go ahead. I'm not keeping you. Just go. Just go. Alright, maybe after watching this video, but basically this idea goes to everything I see around myself. Now the next thing might surprise you a little bit, but I'm not excited to sit down and practice every single day. So there are days when I have to convince myself to sit down, and whenever I can do that, whenever I can force myself to sit down to practice for 5 minutes, I always end up doing it for longer. So what I learned is that it's not motivation that leads to action, but it's in reverse. Action leads to motivation. And the good part about this is that we don't have to wait for some kind of magical inspiration to get started in something. But if we just simply start doing the thing, if we just start recording videos, if we start writing a song, if we start practicing, the motivation and the momentum will follow. It's easier to continue doing something than to just start it. The next thing is something I learned after reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, and it's basically how you don't need to have long practice sessions in order to make a progress, but you can utilize the smaller gaps, the 10 minutes breaks in between your normal tasks. Because sometimes just showing up every single day and repeating the desired act is enough to get started, it's enough to maintain motivation. Right? Because we were just talking about how motivation works a minute ago. So every big result in life has started with a teeny tiny small act. And if you forcefully sit down and practice for longer than you feel like to do so, you're hurting your relationship, your love towards this instrument, and that's not good. So when I feel like I don't have a longer time I can dedicate to practicing, what I try to do is that I block, manageable times. Like I'm gonna say, okay, here's 10 minutes, and I'm going to give myself a manageable goal that still makes me stretch a little bit, because I think we all love challenges. I do. Personally do. But I think we all love challenges because when the size of a challenge is in balance with the level of your skills, of your abilities, and they both are relatively high, that's when you experience this flow state. And that's something that you want to experience ultimately as often as possible, because flow is a quality of experience in which the challenge, the fun, self-esteem, and development are all there. So it's great, it's awesome, it's flow. So when you ask how long do you need to, or how much do you need to practice in order to learn this or that, ask how can you break it down into manageable steps, and how can you make it fun and enjoyable in the meantime instead. I don't know if the next one is going to be relevant for you, but I started this list, so I'm going to just say this one too. So when I was at university, I was really obsessed with the ideology behind music, the philosophy, the great height or the great depth of music, or whatever you want to call it, but I was obsessed with that. And it resulted in a situation where I was playing musically correct, the structure and the style was all there, it was great, but my technique wasn't too polished, let's just say it like that. It's a nice way to put it, but basically my playing was really dirty and I wasn't so accurate technically. So then I got obsessed over technique. I wanted to be as clear and accurate as possible, but that meant that I sacrificed a lot of the musical aspect of the music. So what I have learned is that we need a balance between the details and the big pictures. You need to take good care of the details of the music, every little detail, but then once you have that, you have to be able to step back a little bit and look at the big picture. Now, some of you might know this next one, but I'm really not a morning person, and I used to beat myself up for not practicing in the morning, but I stopped doing it. And on Tuesdays, I go for a walk around 6 p.m. and when I get home, I have this clear mind and I can sit down to practice. And I created a practice corner where I'm inspired to sit down and everything is waiting for me there to get started. I don't have to start the practice session with getting my guitar because it's there on a stand and I have my sheet music prepared, ready to start, and everything else is there. Everything I need is there. Having a dedicated place to practice which feels nice and cozy and which is always ready to start is a really, really good way to reduce distraction. And this is also something I learned from the book Atomic Habits. If you haven't read that book, make sure to read it. It's super useful. And in a chapter where he was talking about how instead of making or learning habits or making habits, we should build systems instead. So as I started to rephrase, I will practice 1 hour every day into something like, okay, after my second coffee, I'm going to bring my coffee back to my practice corner where I feel good. And as I finish my second coffee, I'm going to do my 5 minutes arpeggio session. I think it works better. I'm more likely to stick with a system rather than just an unclear habit. I also wish I was seeing being a musician more clearly in the past, just a little bit, so I could shield myself up, because being a musician is such an emotional roller coaster. It's a very unsteady way of living. I think it's not a very respected job or work or something in our society, in our culture. I think it's not a high status one. And you have to learn to cope with it. Being an artist doesn't mean that you are going to make better and better works every single day. Sometimes you're good for a month and sometimes you're making bad art for a month. And it's hard, it's not fun sometimes. You have to learn to get over that, or you have to learn to accept when you're not very good at your art. It's part of the job. And sometimes by the end of a project, I feel like I used up all my creative juice and I need like weeks to recover and to feel creative again. So I think as professional musicians or musicians who are making a living out of their music, we have to shield ourselves up against stress, against existential dread, against mean people, against people who are looking down at us. But we just don't see these things unless we are deep enough into this industry. But I also truly believe that this is just an obstacle which you can get over, which you can beat if you are patient to yourself, if you're kind to yourself, and if you set yourself realistic goals. We'll be back to the video in just a second. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, you guys. Or more specifically to my Patreons. Now, Patreon allows me to work on my music and on my educational videos in my own pace without any pressure. So if you think my videos or my work is valuable, if you like what I'm doing here, please consider to become a patron and support my art and work on a regular basis. Now, back to the video. The next one is a little bit more of a general thing, but I wanted to share because I think it had a significant impact on my music and my music career and on who I am today. So I used to really hate myself for a lot of reasons. I'm loud, I'm chaotic, I have the energy level of a Labrador, and when I laugh, it looks more like a shark attack than a happy woman. And I was just really jealous of these soft, elegant women and the naturally humorous men I see on YouTube. I really was jealous because I wasn't soft or elegant or a man. But at least I'm kind of funny. But you get my point. But over time, I learned that the people who are following me are looking for features which I wasn't so proud of. Because all these features, all these funny things that I'm doing made me relatable, made me realistic, down to earth, and very authentic. So the lesson I learned is that I don't have to do tricks to have a memorable character because I already have a character. And it's really good to have people who inspire me and who I look up to, but I can't imitate them, I can't copy them because it's not going to be real, it's not going to be authentic. They had their own journey, I have my own journey, and the best I can do is to learn who I am, what makes me, and to let these features and these characters shine, because you know what, this life is way too short to live someone else's life. There's this painter I follow and he creates YouTube videos. His name is Alpay Efe, and in one of his former videos, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, he was talking about how he learned more about portrait paintings through painting flowers and all kind of stuff rather than to just paint portraits and portraits only. And I think I'm in a good place now, but it's just because I realized years ago that in order to become a musician and in order to get where I want to be, I won't only need to be a good guitar player, but I'm going to need at least basic audio recording and editing skills, and I'm going to need to learn something about video editing. And over these past few years, I learned a lot about how social media works. I improved my speaking skills, big shout out to Brian, and all kind of stuff which had a positive impact on my music career. But what's much more interesting is how these different things I've learned over the past few years interact each other and how they affect each other. So, for example, over the past 2 years, I've been improving my painting and drawing skills. And I've learned a lot about structure and composition and colors and all kind of stuff. And I can apply that into my music and my YouTube videos. Or the way I'm playing different musical voices gives me an idea about how I have to lead the attention of my audience toward the more important parts of the music, and I can use this idea to create focal points in my artworks or my videos or my scripts. Or the stuff that I learn at the gym or through exercising is becoming a useful knowledge which I can use to optimize my guitar technique and vice versa. So basically, the more things I do, learn and experience, the wider my perspective gets, and it also means that I can improve on a new field more quickly. So the moral of this story is, rather than to become very, very good at one specific thing, it's more advantageous to have experience in many fields. Now, once I learned this, I was super excited to jump into all kinds of different things, like starting new hobbies and to learn new stuff. But then I very quickly realized that I can't do everything. It's just not possible. I have all kinds of limitations, like physical limitations, like time limitations, financial limitations, all kinds of stuff. So I have to choose what I'm going to be mediocre at. Now, this sounds bad, so I had to find a way to rephrase it to make it sound less bad, less depressing. And the way I do is that the things I'm choosing to be mediocre at are just not a priority for me. I have better things to do. It's not a priority enough for me at the moment. And once you can rephrase this, you will find more joy in what you choose to do because you give yourself more autonomy and willpower. And that's very important if you want to stay happy, while we know that we can't do everything we are interested in. Trust me, I have so much interest. I want to do everything and more. So I know that I have to trick myself into choosing what to do and to let go of the things that I just can't. For example, I will always be bad at replying to my family members and friends' messages, the text messages. I'm just bad at it, and I used to beat myself up for it, but I stopped doing it because it's not a priority for me to get back to everyone, but it's a priority for me to spend quality in-person time with them. So I'm focusing on getting really good at that and dedicating more time to meet these people who are really important to me, while at the same time I just know that I'm not going to be good at replying to everyone quickly or replying at all. Final lesson is something I learned this year, and it's basically that I'm not immortal, and how I can seriously injure myself and ruin my music career maybe within just seconds if I'm not self-aware. And I think health is something that we tend to take for granted, and we are not really thinking about it unless something's already wrong. And this is definitely a field that I need to improve at. I'm on my way, but if you are someone who tend to ignore your health or tend to abandon it, I highly encourage you to take good care of yourself, take good care of your strength, of your physique, of your mental health. It's also part of your health. Don't ignore it. Don't. Take good care of your mental health too. It's super important. And of your joints as well, because the older we get, the more problems we face, and it's super, super important to get prepared. And if you're interested to know more about what I found out about hands, warm-up, stretching, and joints in general regarding to guitar playing, just check out this video here because I explain everything I know. But most importantly, if you have a life lesson, you feel like everyone needs to know about this, please share it in the comment sections. I would love to read them. I would love to learn from you guys. And I think we have a lot of valuable experiences to exchange, to share with each other. So let's talk about it in the comments. And I really, really hope to see you in a bit. Bye.